Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mr. Happy, aka Mr. Happy Mondays, the weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions, and my hair needs a shaving again. Yeah, that second coming of the quarantine hair is all over the place, especially with my headsets, but it is what it is. We'll make do with what we got. I'm feeling pretty tired this week, so as much as I'd love to ramble on about some stuff I definitely want to talk about here at the start of the video, we're going to jump right into the Q&A, because I think that'd probably be the best bet. Of course, we have to thank our patrons over on Patreon. And thank you. I mean, what else is there to say? I mean, I say it every week, so it almost feels like I don't feel like you even believe me anymore. But thank you so much. All the names that are scrolling down the list. We had a ton of patrons join up in the last couple weeks, and it's great. Thank you. I don't do anything with the Patreon. It's literally just for the YouTube channel. That's it. So you don't feel the need to do it because I'm gonna make the content all the same. So just a reminder of that. It also means that if you don't want to be a patron anymore, take care of yourself. That's number one. Got to remind you guys that. Also, thank you to our patrons of Darkness, Khuja Cross on Jenova, and Kurenai Oni. Thank you to both of them, because you both are awesome. And you're all awesome. They're extra awesome, but you're all awesome. So let's get to the questions. All right, question number one, hashtag Mr. Hap Mondays. Hey, I don't mind that. Hey, hi, hello, woof, quack. Hi. So not really that important. It doesn't matter if it's important or not. My opinions aren't important. So... Let's be honest about it. What do you think will be the max level we'll reach? I mean, they'll just keep raising the level until they decide they want to squish level. I'm curious to see how World of Warcraft's level squish goes, like, long term. Because short term, it seems like something that kind of just makes sense on paper. But we'll see how it pans out, because 14 is a very different kind of game. So it's a big question on if they did, like, how they would really condense the level ranges. Let's imagine that Realm Reborn was only, like, 1 to 30, for example. And then Heavensward was 30 to 40, Stormblood was 40 to 50, and Shadowbringers was 50 to 60. It'd be a very different game we'd be playing, so a lot of question marks about that. But I don't think they'll stop us at 99. If they're going to go 10 levels, they're going to go 10 levels. They'll go to 100. Question is, when will they squish the levels? And that we don't know. All right, we started with a couple of short ones. Right above this question, by the way, someone did the math from a question I answered last week about synced gear, and found that if you were to actually make an unsynced item level 430 set for Shiva, or 435, I guess, because that's the actual item level, but I guess 430 is like a more reasonable item level to work in, that you could get up to like a, just under a 3% better substat total. So there you go. See, that's the math being put to work. That's my logic being put to work and the math being put in there too. So that's good to know. But that's the kind, I'm glad that you took the concept that we followed. And there's some additional advice under that I noticed in the reply. But the question we have in front of us is hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Happy, hope you're doing all right. Long-time viewer since 2.x days here. Welcome. My question is, do you have any prediction for when 5.4 will drop? I heard mid-November. Mid-November is not too far off. So the easiest way to make a prediction about patch dates, obviously COVID, as much as they say they're back on schedule, I don't like to completely rule out that something else could go wrong. Some sort of schedule change could still happen because everything is unpredictable right now. But you generally add 16 weeks to when the patch came out, and that is when you get your approximation for the date. So if I remember, so the patch came out on the 18th, right? I believe it did. On the 18th, is that right? No, it's been more than a week. It's been like a week and a half, hasn't it? Has it? Yeah. Patch came out on the 11th. So let's see. August 11th. Okay, so that's day 0. So 1 week, 2 weeks, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. December 1st is the most logical one based on that 16-week measure. That's been accurate for the most part. I'd say mid-November is a little early of a guess. That would be a 3.5 month, which is what they advertise, but it's realistically 4 months. We more often have 16 and 17-week waits than 14-week waits. So I'd say December 1st or 8th are the two dates that are most likely. One of those two for patch 5.4. So right before the holiday season, so that's my prediction. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hi. Ugh. You can tell I'm tired. First time asking. Welcome. Lately I have an urge to attempt clearing an ultimate, but I have a problem with mentality. Do you have any recommendations for how to approach raiding 4 times a week for a few hours and wiping to one boss over and over again? I will say with ultimate, the fact that every mini boss is like 3-ish minutes apart actually is a major mental boost when it comes to that content. I know especially with Ultima Weapon in particular, going from Garuda to Ifrit to Titan to Ultima, that natural progression actually is a huge motivator, because when you finish one of the bosses and then you have to master the transition, every individual bit almost feels like its own fight. It all ties together, but it really, really helps with the mentality. So looking at it from that perspective will probably give you a little bit of help overall. As for four times a week, I mean, I'm used to raid. I've raided 6-7 times a week for like new raid tier prog whenever it comes out, in Ultimates in particular. So 4 times a week for me is something I wouldn't struggle with much mentally. But I mean, it's literally just going forward. The toughest part is not getting started. The toughest part is when the group hits a wall. And a lot of the times with T in particular, that's dealing with Nisi. That usually takes several nights for people to work out, unless everyone's on a really high skill level, even if they haven't cleared it, or Wormhole. Realistically, you're going to go through the fight, 5-6 minutes in, wipe a bunch, 7-8 minutes in, wipe a bunch, and it's going to happen over and over. And eventually it comes to 14, 15, 16 minute enrages, in rage pulls and wiping. And it's just, you got to be able to just pull through it and be like, okay, what can I do better this time? Or I did everything great, let me make sure I do that again. Focus on not making mistakes and how you can help other people not make mistakes. And as long as you approach it with every boss, every mechanic is like me taking a step forward, then that mentality should help you a lot when it comes to dealing with the ultimate raids. All right, hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. Hey, Haps, with the item level cap so low for Unreal, do you think tank swaps are going to end up being important? So, the funny thing about that this is very fight dependent. We used to do Shiva 1 tank back in A Realm Reborn after a few weeks and in like parties that we trusted. And yeah, you make mention of this. So tank swaps are going to be important. Even now, if you don't tank swap in Shiva, it's survivable, but it's horrible on the healers because the healing in that fight is not insignificant. And Shiva, one of her a lot of people kind of forget this, one of Shiva's most basic mechanics is her auto attacks as in each of her different phases. So if you're not tank swapping on at least every other one, then it gets noticeable real quick. So yeah, for the other ones in particular, that's probably going to remain to be a thing, especially with the Party Finder being something that exists nowadays, something we didn't have back during the A Realm Reborn Extreme Trial days. So yeah, it's going to be a very, very big deal when it comes to Unreal. And I can't wait to see it, actually, because I've actually enjoyed Shiva Unreal more than I thought I would, even if the reward structure is kind of I'm going to cover that in a video of its own, probably in the next couple days. But yeah, definitely with the tank swaps. Hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. Hello. I hope you're doing all right. I'm doing all right. You doing all right? I'm tired. This is my first time asking a question. Well, welcome. Let me click read more and make sure that YouTube doesn't bug out. There we go. I have a question about Final Fantasy XI. Sure. Been trying it out every time there's a returner campaign, but I always end up playing for a couple days and stopping while the rest of the campaign goes to waste. The reason for me is getting burned out really fast in that couple of days and then stopping while the campaign goes. Oh, no. Wow. I read that line twice. One quest usually takes me a couple hours to complete because of how long it takes to run through those huge barren zones and because I constantly have to look at a guide because quest X doesn't tell you anything. The quests that requires you to get enemy drops with low drop rates certainly don't help. I know it used to be much worse before they streamlined because you had to find a group to play with. I could just quit, but I heard the story of the game gets good later on. So the big thing about Final Fantasy XI is that I would not recommend doing actual end game or post story game in Final Fantasy XI nowadays. It's not that it's bad. It's in a lot of ways it's actually improved a lot from its older days in regards to the amount of things you can actually get done in a reasonable period of time. There's a good mix of activities you could maybe tackle alone that are kind of on the lower end, especially if you don't have a lot of gear, and stuff that you can tackle with groups of people, whether it be to speed it up substantially or it's simply requiring that, like Raijin Helms or Dynamis Divergence or things like that. So there's a good mix of those things, but that being said, it is just such a slog to get through that. I realistically just recommend doing the stories at whatever pace is comfortable for you, and then stepping away unless you're really into what you're playing. You don't seem to be on that level, so like in terms of interest. So I would almost assuredly more so recommend that you kind of just take your time. I think the way you're playing, it's fine. I don't think there's any reason to feel bad for going ham on a game for a few days and then just kind of not wanting to play it super hard after that. I take no issue, or I find no issue in the way that you're approaching it, because that's Final Fantasy XI it could be a headache. It is a headache. So I would say don't change anything. There's no reason to force yourself to play it more, to come up with a change in attitude or a change of perspective, to change the way you actually feel about playing, because the way you actually feel should reflect how much time you want to invest in it. So there's nothing going to make the journey any smoother. You're already looking at text guides. You're already walking around. If you don't know this, you can teleport between home points That might help. Get a warp ring and set your home point someplace so that way you can warp back to it every time the warp ring is available. That helps. Get teleport rings, teleport dem rings, May rings, things like that. So once you already have the teleport point, you can use a ring to teleport there instantly. But until you get all the home points and can teleport around fairly freely, then you're going to be relying on Unity warps or walking someplace for the first time, and it's a bit of a headache. It's the truth. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Haps, hope you're doing good. I'm doing all right. Hope you're doing good, too. My question is about Arashiro and what you think of the improvements. It's a bold move. How do you think neutral sect makes things like aspected benefic stack affect the level 80 rotation? Sorry for lack of better wording. So, quite frankly, I'm not even thinking about neutral stance. It's nice that the hots now stack during neutral, but it's hardly something that I'm looking at when I consider the changes. Obviously, the biggest changes are the MP generation and sleeve draw. Astro's MP is insane. It's like as hard or harder to waste MP than it is as White Mage. It's ridiculous. As for the actual gameplay, I think sleeve draw needs its cooldown reduced, even if that means reducing its MP regeneration, or it needs to at least get another card stacked back up, because it's lost a bit of its feel. Even if it's effective, I think it could still be improved a little bit more. I think they took all the right steps, and then they took one step away from it when it came to reducing the amount of cards sleeve draw had. Everything else I can't really comment on. That's really the only thing I'm ever thinking about when I think of the Arashiro changes. But I'm also not a seasoned Arashiro, so my opinion matters for very little here, in my opinion, which is weird and ironic. All right, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. This one's from today. Hi, Haps. Greetings from down under. It'll go all in. That's funny. What is something about 14 that brings you back and playing every day? Well, to be clear, I don't play every day. I play every day when there's new stuff, things I actually want to accomplish. And this is kind of something I've been considering making a video about recently. I tried ESO online, but quickly came back to 14. The story and music is uncomparable. Them Soken beats are top tier. Dude, that Pulse, those Pulse album previews, I literally play them every day. I love it. I don't play every day, first of all. I think that's a healthy distinction to make. Obviously, I do this for a living. I produce YouTube videos. I live stream on Twitch. I have all sorts of avenues of earning my living that we've explored over the years. But if I don't want to play 14, I won't. That's a mistake that I made years and years ago. When I was first going for Twitch partner, I felt like I had to play every day, even if there was not something I really wanted to accomplish in game. And that led me to, accomplishing some things that I probably wouldn't have otherwise. And over the years, I've gotten better at going for some of the more minor goals that I otherwise may have reasonably overlooked in my previous years. But that being said, if I don't want to play, I don't play, man. So I'm looking at Temtem shiny hunting because I've actually been itching for some shiny hunting in Pokemon or Temtem as of late. We've got Crystal Chronicles, Star Renegades I got to try out. We did a couple of sponsored streams. We did one for Romancing Saga. We did a video for Romancing Saga. We did an ad for Romancing Saga. We checked out Rune 2, it's like a Viking style Diablo looter, and I've been taking my time to enjoy those things or take other opportunities or sponsored opportunities, especially during the times that we're living in right now. So, for me, it's not about what makes me want to play every day, but the real answer is I just love the game. I just love Final Fantasy as a franchise, and that really carries me. That's the only thing that really keeps me even logging into Final Fantasy 11 occasionally. So even now with the new story quest, I'm not like, oh my god, I gotta play 11 all the time. I'm like, yeah, I guess I'll throw a day or two at retail 11. That's fine, and then I won't log in after that for like a month or so. But whatever, like the other person was doing. So for me, honestly, it's just the game, the world, the constant updates, the fact that I'm playing something that doesn't feel like it's being abandoned, it really keeps me going because it's part of a franchise that I'm a complete fanboy for, that's the truth behind it. So picking out one specific element as to why I play doesn't feel like a genuine answer because there's not one single thing or one aspect or something that makes me go, yes, I need to play. It's just the first thing I think to do when I log in because I genuinely love it. So that's the best answer I could think to give. It's kind of a roundabout answer, but hopefully it's satisfactory. You know what I don't know why I started doing, dude? I lean on my chair here like I'm just chilling. It's really comfortable. It's a Herman Miller chair too, so it's really, really comfortable. And it's not the new gaming one. This is the Aeron, which Mel got for me for our anniversary years and years and years ago. And it's really, really comfortable. It's definitely the most comfortable chair I've ever sat in. So I just like to lean back a little bit on it, just do this. Like I'm just chilling. I don't know why I started doing this, but I'm leaving that in the video. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hi, Mr. Happy. Hi. I hope you're having an amazing day. I'm doing all right. Hope the rest of your day is also great. Me too. Thank you for answering my last question about speech bubbles. I found it funny and insightful. My question today is regarding job changes throughout expansions. Cool. As you mentioned, the Black Mage job is now basically perfect. Love it. I thought the Dragoon and Dark Knight jobs of Heavensward were also perfect. I know many people still think those jobs are superior to their incarnations today. What do you think of the idea of locking in a perfect job rather than revamping it and just to introduce a new variant of the job and immortalize the original in its perfect state? So that in essence, or in practice, that doesn't work the same way as it does in theory. So in theory, you find like the perfect gameplay and you never change it and it's always the greatest thing and it's fun forever. It's not the reality of it, unfortunately. If you don't make changes, people just get bored of the same thing. Everyone else, all these other jobs get shiny new toys. Maybe somebody finds another one a little more fun now. Now all of a sudden they look at their old job and they go, man, they really haven't done anything with that in ages. They should really, revamp it a little bit, give it some life, breathe some life into that job because it's just not doing it. And then, they do that with their old job and, maybe they love that again, or maybe they screwed it up even worse. Sometimes you just got to take a chance on job changes just for the sake of shaking things up, because if you leave it exactly the same, you're going to just bore people. And I know when it comes to balancing, it sounds like, well, it shouldn't be about whether or not you're bored. It should be, whether or not it's balanced. But people actually enjoying the thing that they play is a really, really important thing of an MMO, because you want them to have as many reasons as possible to keep subscribing. And every time you hit that big fat crit on a job that you love playing, when I get the reassembled drill on the machinist, but then I also get the direct hit crit air anchor afterwards for the double right there. That's what I'm talking about, man. So things like that really get you going, but you can't rely on it being the same forever. There's always going to be something that needs to change, something that people want to change, and I think it's important to embrace that. Locking it in as a perfect state without taking any risks, I think people just get bored after a while. Hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. Hey, Haps, hope you are well. I don't know why that was really hard. I can't read today. When can I ever read? Come on. Hi. This might be a little rambly, but I'll try to keep it succinct. I like that word. On a similar note to a question teaching new players mechanics, I had a friend who's getting into Savage ask me if there were practice instances similar to Stone Sky Sea, but involve simulated AoEs or downtime that they can test positioning and rotations on their own time, rather than having to bother friends to fill a party. Had a similar thought with friends mid-prog that we'd love to be able... Yeah, so this has actually come up quite a few times before, and I think even the dev team has brought it up before, the idea of giving players the ability to practice in a more lively situation without having to actually hop into the most relevant content. And I don't think it's a bad idea. Whether or not it's... Well, I mean, there's no argument whether or not it's a bad idea or a good idea. It's an idea and it's a feature. It's quality of life. It's something to give players more practice before they get into something. How do I say this? Generally speaking, you won't know necessarily, other than just beating the dummy, if you're actually doing things super well in that kind of instance. Not being hit. Here's the thing, what they don't want to do is give you a solo instance where they just teach you a fight and then say go in. I don't think that's necessarily a bad idea, but it doesn't seem like they want to do anything like that. So like, let's say I've never done Shiva Savage before. Let's just say that. And I want to practice it, but I don't want to go into the Party Finder to practice it. I'm going to go do this solo instance until I've got it flawlessly down, and then I'm going to go into the fight. You know what I mean? When I say that out loud, doesn't it sound like something? Oh yeah, that's logical, but also, doesn't it sound like it wouldn't be like the greatest thing? Like I can imagine like learning parties like diminishing even more than they already do, or people wanting you to link videos of you doing it before they actually invite you. There's a lot of things that are tied into that. I think that they could do a better job of teaching what certain basic AoEs look like, and maybe revamping some of the old ones, but I don't think they'll ever do something where you can just practice a phase in a fight without doing the fight, without the pressure of, performing alongside 7 other people. Another thing is if they do that, they have to tell you what the right way to do everything is. And while that's obviously, referring to myself, Trust have already kind of killed the point of dungeon guides, but this then kind of stunts the ability of people to improve in the party finder even more. Right now we have a problem where people want, the easiest method to understand, the easiest method to clear with, and rarely do people ever seem to want to improve in the party finder. And that's unfortunate because improving is, self-improvement is a satisfying thing to do. And quite frankly, I think if a lot more people tried it and cared more about that than the actual clear of the fight, they'd find clearing some of these fights a more satisfying overall, reaching for that next height. But if you do something like this, you not only need to have it so that, you have 7 NPCs all doing the mechanics exactly right, but you're now telling people how you expect to do the fight. And look at Light Rampant. Look how many different strategies there are for that. Look at knockback mirrors on E8 Savage. I guess E8 Savage has tons of examples of player divergence and strategy. E5, True North versus Relative, Triangle versus Circle. You can't account for all that. And they're not going to program all those different ways into it after the fact. So there's quite a few issues where it's a perfectly logical and reasonable thing to want on paper. I don't think anyone should feel bad for thinking this is a good idea in the game. But in practice, it's way harder to implement and way harder to make an actual player improvement experience versus just practicing in the real deal. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Laliho. How you doing? I'm doing all right. You doing all right? I'm doing all right. First time question, long time watcher. Welcome. I was wondering your view on mechanics for the new EX trial compared to some of the Savage trials. I personally like the new EX, makes you have to pay attention to what's going on around you a lot more than most Savage. Love to see more fights move towards require to react to a random order of boss mechanics. So this has actually been a really important thing. This was noted back in 09 Savage against Chaos, because Chaos had 2 phases that were completely identical, but the order in which they happened was random. The first 50% of the fight could either go one way or could go the other way, and then whatever mechanic he didn't use in the first phase, he'd use in the second phase. But what would happen is you'd have to learn all 4 phases no matter what, because he could do some of them at the beginning, some of it at the end. I'll tell you that myself and other raiders have often appreciated this approach, where you need to know every mechanic. There's no skipping a mechanic per se. You might not see a mechanic on an individual pull, but that doesn't excuse you from having to learn it. It's honestly, as a guide maker, it's great for me because it forces everyone to need to know everything. How many times have I done a guide where I've been like, well, after this, we had to sit around and wait 3 minutes just to see every mechanic. Like, I still do that regardless because it's more footage for all of them. But with the recent Extreme trial, I was learning them all as I learned the fight because we had to because of this random order. So this has been one of the most well-received things about the most recent EX trial, and that's for good reason. It's more stimulating of an experience to have to know everything, but the order you put it into practice changes significantly, whether it's all the mechanics within one individual mechanic, like quintuple cast, or the order all the mechanics happen overall. It's well received. It doesn't have to be completely random. He's not throwing out this like, oh, he did 6 tank busters in a row. That's not what we're talking about. But it's controlled randomness in a way that happens frequently enough that it's satisfying player. Player goes, okay, this is happening, so I'll do this time. And then the next pull, okay, he's doing this first, so I'll do this instead. It's cool, and it makes it so optimizing those kind of fights is a little bit more involved, and I'd love to see it more in the future. Hashtag Mr. Hap Mondays. We're getting a lot of Mr. Hap Mondays. This one's also from today. Hello, Mr. Happy. Hope you had a great weekend. I hope you had a great weekend, too. I have a question regarding the hunt situation, specifically the older S-ranks. Oh, boy. I think I already know where this is going. I've been organizing my own trainings for the Day Center Spawn. Don't know how many old and new S-ranks. I was finishing Zone of Seeker when I caught a Glimmer Scale. S-rank did pop north, where I even popped the S-rank. Where we did speak Yoshi P about a hunt situation where they're aware somewhat of the mounts and we can make hold their own start. No. So I've asked Yoshi P. Okay. So this one exactly about the HP on old S-ranks. I've asked them a million times. They just keep answering. It's old content. They don't want to scale it up because at the end of the day, it's old content. I don't agree with the outlook. I really do think they could do with an HP bump or some sort of dynamic HP scaling on those old ones. But no, every time I've asked several times, and every time they go, no, we're not interested in adjusting old content. That's the way they've looked at it. Hashtag Mr. Hat Mondays. Hello. Hi. First time asking and somewhat long time viewer. Started around the time of Realm Reborn EX guides. Yeah, that's pretty old. That's like as old as it gets. So, yeah, you've been around for a while. You think Unreal should be locked behind extremes and unlocks only after 3 legit clears while being synced, then synced minimum item level, then synced minimum item level? No, I don't think so. This sounds like a way to try and get people to learn it before they learn it. Because there's no reason you can't learn Shiva Unreal in Shiva Unreal. They're the same fight, the exact same fight. One's just not scaled as tightly as the other. So forcing people to do the level 50 version, you know, cutting back all of their abilities back to level 50, just to make them do something that's limited time, it's not going to be around. It's one of those things that, again, in your head, like we've been saying earlier in the video, it's like, it sounds super logical, right, to make sure people have some experience with it, but at the same time, it's still the same fight. They're going to learn it one way or the other, and them learning it in Unreal is probably likely to have more lasting effects than them going back and learning it in Extreme, where they have, you know, like a third of their abilities compared to what they have now. So I don't think it's the right idea. I don't think it's the right approach. I don't see any reason why they can't just learn it in Unreal itself. And why is it so hard to do blind runs for Extremes without someone trying to say you need to do this or that? I mean, it's just because a lot of people don't want to do it. I mean, if you put blind and no videos, no guides, and people join it, and then they do that, yeah, that's kind of messed up. But if it's blind and one person's been further, or they saw someone do it, it's not as bad as go watch and read this entire manuscript of everything, or this video, and then we'll do it. You know, it's just, you're not gonna stop people, I think is the best way to put it. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hashtag hello. Hi. I think you did that last week, didn't you? You doing all right? I'm doing all right. You hyped for some 7 remake news as I am? I would love it. Apparently, they're supposed to be announcing a bunch of games in like August and September, I think they said, for Square Enix, but we don't know what they are. After watching this video with having bots as a reoccurring topic, it made me wonder if Square Enix will reduce the need to return the starting cities for certain things, as they always have bots, usually RMT callers. An example would add turning function for grant companies to other areas. No, I mean, you're not going to stop bots. Bots are going to exist no matter what. Whether or not they're in the starting city or not is irrelevant, whether or not you send a player there. I understand what you're saying. You're saying like if they less encouraged people to go to those places, then they wouldn't be exposed to bots as much. But quite frankly, that's not the problem. The problem is the bots are there. And it's up to the special task force and the players to report them and get them removed as quickly as possible. If nobody's there, that doesn't stop them from being there for the people that are there, the new players that are logging in, which have no choice but to constantly go in and out of that area. Sometimes you just want to go back to an area because you like it. You know, the quicksand is really popular on some servers and on Ulta. And the players aren't just going to stop and up and move and go to another location after all this time. The problem shouldn't be getting players away from the place RMT have the easiest access, because you should be alerting your players that this is not allowed, and B, doing as much as you can to remove those RMT. So I think that's more important than cutting features out of main cities. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Haps, how you doing? I'm doing all right. You doing all right? I'm doing all right. Long-time listener, first-time asker. Welcome. Main physical range, and know you do as well. Amongst the DPS, the common reason for DPS tax is due to mobility. No cast bars, no melee, less deeps. Yeah, it's an approach that I've agreed with less and less, however. Only because people just don't care about it as much anymore. I know it sounds kind of weird. I think there should be some discrepancy for it, but it feels like they never get the taxes right. They keep everything pretty closely balanced, but individual jobs don't necessarily feel as good or great. Honestly, in the Party Finder, all the jobs feel great because there's such a variety of skill levels present there. But if everyone were to score 95 and you see what you're doing versus what everyone else is doing, it starts to kind of feel bad. And it never feels like they've really perfected the proper tax. Now, if a new healer was introduced, crazy mobility, no cast bars, how would they be taxed? Quite frankly, all potencies across the board. If a healer literally never has to stop and cast, never has to stop moving, that means they never have to think about where they can fit in a GCD heal. It also means it probably means less OGCDs also. That's more than likely the bigger thing that they would do, is that they would force you to choose to use a global cooldown if you wanted to actually heal somebody, or give you very limited access to off global so that you had to at least consider it. Because if you have the ability to move and use your globals, they're going to want to express that as much as possible, which quite frankly would lead to it being less desired unless its raid DPS contributions were way more impressive than something like Astrologian, and Astrologians is already pretty good. So those are potential taxes that they would do to a max mobility healer like that. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hi, you doing all right? I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. You're doing all right? I'm doing all right. Been a long time watcher listener all the way back in Leviathan. That is indeed a long time. As a first time bonus, receive an insane first day prog. Dude, I'm hoping for it, man. 3 fights down to day 1. That's what you're always hoping for with the Savage tiers nowadays. My question is, how do you break into the streaming community? I know just to keep streaming even though you have no viewers, stay consistent, but I was hoping you had some tips or something to help me maybe break into it, or tags when you use streaming Final Fantasy. So Tags are something that are really more YouTube side, video side, more so than the live streaming portion of YouTube. But there really isn't a secret for it. It's either dumb luck or something that really makes you stand out. I know that for me, making YouTube videos before everyone really started playing Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn, that was my big ticket in. It got people to know who I was, and then I decided to start live streaming, and it all kind of worked together to create an experience I could have never predicted in the future. At any point I can say, oh, my future is going to be like this. No. There's no way I could have known, and it's still a shock to me to this day. But I've seen tons of other people break in through, a really, really specific type of personality or community, and the community building is really a big thing about it. I've also had people who they just find their way. I don't know. There's no words for it. There's no secret to success. I will say this though: the more social avenues you have, the more likely you are to experience success when it comes to content creation. If you have a YouTube, you should have a Twitter. You should have a Facebook. Maybe. I don't really use mine anymore. I'm sure most of you have noticed I don't touch my old Facebook page much anymore. It's just there and exists and whatever. I don't care to use Facebook, guys. I don't think many of you will really blame me for that either. But you have a Twitter, a YouTube, an Instagram, a Twitch. Maybe you want to have some other platform involved. Maybe you like Patreon. Maybe you want to do live streams on Patreon too for things that are specific. It really depends. The more avenues you're able to comfortably, without breaking yourself mentally, keep up with and follow, the better off it'll be, because those things may not seem important, but they really, really are. The more platforms people can see you, the more people who see you. That's usually a decent recipe for success. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Mr. Happy, how you doing? Greetings also to Aloha, who I don't know where he is, but he's not in here. A couple of questions for you today, if that's all good. One, I have recently made the jump from PS4 Pro to PC after buying a new PC. I'm loving the crisp quality and high frame rates. There's one thing that sticks out is DirectX 11. See, I haven't had a DirectX 11 error in ages. I had them when DirectX 11 first came out. I haven't had them in such a long time, so I'm not sure what the actual problem is. But you're not the only person who has this problem. So I wish I had more insight, but I don't have issues with it. I get lucky. I don't know. I did have a DirectX crash like 3 weeks ago, actually. And then I haven't had one since, and it was a long time before that when I had them. So again, I don't know. I just don't have them often enough to think about it. That's it. I don't have anything. Planning on playing Crystal Chronicles? Yes. I didn't play the original because I didn't have any friends to play it with, and it looked like a game I didn't want to play alone. So this will be my first time playing it. I'll be playing a uke with a couple of my pals on Thursday, and we'll be continuing a playthrough, and I'll probably play it on my own a little bit without them because I have a bit of an addictive personality. But I'm looking forward to it because it's one of the Final Fantasy games I've never gotten to enjoy, and I think I'll enjoy it. So I'll let you know how I feel about it after the fact. All right, I saw there's a bunch of questions that are going to go in the lightning round just because I have lightning round answers for them. So we're going to skip ahead a little bit. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Haps, hope you're doing all right. 2 questions regarding Blue Mages. Do you think we get new content in 5.4? No, I think 5.5. I said if it wasn't 5.3, which I was really hoping for, but it was always a slim chance, that it would be 5.5. I'm going to stick to that prediction. It's based on nothing, but that's going to be it. I do think they will evolve from there. It's a good question. There's really... Oh, Aloha's in here now. There's really no way to predict it because I'm sooner predicting another limited job than the continued evolution of Blue Mage. Not that I don't think they'll update it ever again after the next update, but I really wonder how they're viewing it internally because they have to have some idea of like whether or not this idea worked in the first place and, how they're going to continue it. And we don't know that yet. So this is something we'll just have to revisit in the future. You didn't even mean that evolve from there. I think they'll get limit breaks. They'll just get an ability that lets them use the limit gauge to cast a spell, and they'll have one that covers each of the different limit breaks. That's really the big thing I see them evolving with. Not even based on their stance, by the way, because then they'd only have a caster LB, for example. Like I literally think it'd be best if they just had an ability that used limit break gauge, and maybe it requires certain ethereal mimicries, like the single target or ranged limit breaks would require the DPS mimicry, so you can be a DPS using the tank LB3, for example. But other than that, yeah, I think that's the only thing I really expect out of it. All right, so we actually still have quite a few questions left, so I'm going to make this my last non-lightning round question for no reason other than I'd like to lightning round the rest of them, and then we'll lightning round the rest of them. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Haps, how you doing? You doing all right? I'm doing all right. You doing all right? tonight. Big question, might be controversial, but recently people have been talking about how players outside the 14 community view us and the game, and how negative that view is. What I personally found is the majority of players who enjoy the game can behave normally on the internet and stay within 14 spaces, like the actual game of the 14 forms. Whereas players who are a less discerning minority gather on more public message boards. Dude, welcome to the internet. That's so what you're asking is a Final Fantasy 14 question, but it's wrapped in the real question of this is everywhere. This is not a 14 specific thing, and you're no doubt talking about the Asmongold video. I mean, listen. I'm someone in the Final Fantasy 14 space, and I've dealt with shit like death threats and emails from people telling me all sorts of things. And we've seen people from outside the Final Fantasy 14 community see all sorts of response. One of the biggest ones that I could think of is Scott's Own dude. The dude was a WoW refugee, self-proclaimed, came in, made some, loved the game. Everyone was loving his content, and he made some criticisms. And then everyone was like, oh, you're just a WoW baby, blah, blah, blah. And then they were sending him death threats, and the only slip-up he made was, showing that email publicly, which was considered doxing, which pushed him away from it altogether. But the whole point is it was bullshit that anyone was even upset that he had criticisms in the first fucking place. But that's how people are. When people like something and you criticize it, they get really fucking mad about it on the internet. And it's the stupidest fucking thing of all time. But it's not just Final Fantasy 14. We're just only paying attention to the Final Fantasy 14 portion of it because it's relevant to us. But I guarantee you, it's everywhere and it happens with everything. I perceive a bunch of WoW people, not the same way as that, but I perceive WoW in a very particular way. And how I see the WoW community from the outside is how I've chosen to develop it over the years. I see the people who talk about Classic and how they talk about Classic. I see the people who talk about retail and how they talk about retail. That shapes it because they're the people doing all the talking. And quite frankly, most time people who are happy don't say anything. And the people who have nothing better to do but are angry, they say everything. So it's about who's the loudest in the room. And on the internet, people know how to be real loud with if they want to be complaining or they want to be toxic or anything like that. So 14 no doubt has this view from some people, but that view just exists across so many things that it's hard to really nail down anything even 14 specific about this conversation. It's a conversation that's so much bigger than one MMO on the internet. And I don't think we could possibly get into that any more in depth without getting pretty spicy up in here. But I think you understand what I'm trying to say about everything. At least I hope you do. All right, let's lightning round some questions. So the main reason I'm lightning rounding some of them had replies that made me feel like maybe I don't need to answer them, but I'll throw my 2 cents in. Or I've answered them before and I just have a quick re-answer. So with the addition of Clear and Crystal Tower raids, a dream of getting anything but those raids in Alliance Roulette's pretty much dead. If one person's below level 50, well, they can't be below level 50. They have to be level 50 or higher. But he guesses, is this a problem? Yeah, I'd like to see them maybe come up with a way to encourage other 24-mans to pop up into the raid roulette. It's not really a problem, though. It means easy re-clears for people, but it means lack of variety, which makes the roulette kind of boring. And I do agree with that. That's not super attractive, I suppose. I seem debated saying nothing was wrong with Summoner, but I do. I really like to see Summoner actually summon more Egos. I don't know if that's a real question or not, because you said Egos. I think 6.0 will get a rework. Yeah, I actually think the pet system's going to be reworked in 6.0. I think Beastmaster, whether it be limited or unlimited, I think it's coming at some point, and I think it's going to require a reworked pet system in order to happen, because if it happens on the current one, it's not going to be satisfying. Let's see. Okay, that's it when we scroll down. There's one that's why aren't tank stanches just traits, and there's a whole huge discussion about it. I couldn't get into that because it was too long. But there's some great replies under it that pretty much actually sum up all my points. So I don't even need to touch that one. So they had a discussion with the person in the replies. So I'll back up what that other individual is actually saying. So one of our raid members beat the dancer dummy with 7 seconds left with no food or pots, but 3 seconds left on machinists with pots. The Stone Sky Sea dummies are scaled differently to every different job. So just because you can beat it faster on the dancer one versus the machinist one doesn't actually reflect on their personal DPS. It reflects on what the game expects of you. And for the dancer one in particular, the fact that you have no dance partner, you have no additional generation of your resources, things that are literally core to your identity are missing when you're doing Stone Sky See in particular, unless you're going to cheat and use a Chocobo, which I say cheating because your Chocobo, if it's in offensive generating stacks for you, is also contributing to the DPS check for Stone Sky Sea, which is why I say cheating using a Chocobo for that. So I wouldn't use that. Those two things aren't reflective of each other, but Dancer's A DPS is certainly on the lowest, and the R DPS of the ranged physical role is generally towards the bottom overall, and Dancer's usually around the bottom, but in no way in a way that makes it so like you can't bring it into content. A lot of people really enjoy having Dancer for its utility, for its mobility, for its burst and reliability, especially when it comes to ads like in E8 Savage Electricals, for example, which I can one-shot 2 of them on Dancer, and it's amazing if I'm on the left side. So I wouldn't judge those things against it, but if your friend wants to change from Machinist to Dancer because he thinks it'll be better for utility, cool. I mean, Dancer is a lot of fun, and you guys won't have an issue with that. Let's see. I'm not going to answer that one because I think it has spoilers. I also don't really have an answer for it. Australia playing on NA ping. They need to give Nier more backstory. Somebody who wrote a 40-page Baldesion Arsenal guide. Are we getting a certain potion-wielding healer in 6.0? We'll just have to wait and see on that one. Let's see. Titan Unreal in first-person camera mode. They just wanted to scare me with that. Successful. Can you predict the changes for Monk in patch 5.4? No, we really need some direct clarification on what they plan to do before it's reasonable to make any predictions. If they make it a trait and you just always have Grease Lightning after you level up, then there's a lot of things that are probably going to change about the job. And laying that out in one video that like I'm just kind of passing it off towards the end is probably not going to work out. Recently went into Coils and was wondering if they would ever make it part of the main scenario. They can do whatever they want. I mean, Chris, now that they're taking old content and making it main scenario relevant, they could, but only if it's going to be relevant, not for no reason. So that's the important thing to notice. So it's up to them whether or not they want to make something like Coil MSQ. And if they do, they'll probably revisit it and give it a lower difficulty also, because that's going to be a big thing. If it stays at the difficulty it is, well, not difficult to just unsync and finish, they'd probably want to make it like a proper normal mode, like not what it currently is. Let's see. How do you know? I answered that one. That's the healer mobility one. Will SC need to reduce the number of starting city? No, we did that one. Do you think Unreal should be locked behind extremes? No, I could have swore there were more questions in here that I like skipped through. There's one where should I accept the previous leader's offer? This is like FC leadership questions. Bro, I've never owned an FC. I am not the person to ask about this. I have no idea how people should handle that, and I don't feel like it's a good idea for me to be responsible for other people's FC passing decisions based on available playtime. It just feels reckless to take advice from somebody who's never been in that situation before. So, you know, it's the best that I'm going to get. I wish I had something better for you. A 495 to 5.3 finding it harder to find a static. You should just be pugging, man. Just pug. If you've got the item level for it, just hop in the party finder and get practice in on those things. Don't worry about jumping right into a static if you haven't been around for this raid tier. So that's it. Yeah, do that, and then, you know, once you have like a log of things, a portfolio, if you will, then you can maybe apply to a static, so they have some guess of what your average skill level is. So you can also find the right static that way. Let's see. Is there anything else? The perfect job one, brings me back playing every day. Astro improvements, Final Fantasy 11. I don't know, cap solo for Unreal. I could have swore there was one more I wanted to answer. There was the one where the person did the calculations. One calling out me not being able to English last week. I'm positive I saw another one that I thought I wanted to answer. Maybe I just wanted to acknowledge some of them, and I kind of already did that. Yeah, I don't know. I could have swore there were more questions. Maybe I just thought I had longer answers to these. So now I kind of feel bad for skipping right to the lightning round, but we're already done. So with that, thank you for asking your questions on this week's episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hopefully next week I can actually speak English. That would be a pretty good improvement for me to be able to finally speak English. But thank you everyone for asking questions on this week's episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy. If you have a question, be sure to ask it in the comment section of this video, and be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share, and all that generic YouTube shit I say at the end of every video. But anyway, thanks for watching. I will see you all next week. Thanks to our patrons again. Before I forget, thank you. And of course, take care.